We are tackling the pantry and the fridge door with my Pantry Puttanesca. It's super tasty, but you know the fridge door, that's the place where everything goes to die in my house. You open up a nice jar of olives and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna be someone who eats olives every night. And then you do it once and it sits in that door forever. That, roasted red peppers, capers, things like that, all those really tasty, briny, kind of funky flavors that are so good to mix into something, but oftentimes we forget about them. So with this recipe, I wanna show you how to clean out that fridge door, maybe a little bit of your pantry, and it's gonna be absolutely amazing. This is actually a recipe from my cookbook, In Mary's Kitchen. This is a really fun one. Basically, this uses like every can and jar you could ever have, and it's an absolute delight. So we're gonna get to work on the pasta first. This comes together really quickly. So we need to get working on those noodles. Basically, by the time the noodles cooked, the dish should be ready to go. So I've got some boiling water right here, and I'm gonna season that really well with some salt. Now, this is where everybody goes, ooh, because I had a lot of salt into my water. So this is to season it up really nicely, because don't worry, most of that salt goes down the drain, but that's gonna season up those noodles as it cooks. Not a ton of it gets absorbed in, so really like ratio-wise, it's not too much salt. But I've got about 350 grams of spaghetti here. You can use any sort of pasta you want. I like the longer ones because while we are cleaning up the pantry and fridge, longer noodles are like a little bit messy to eat. They kind of fling the sauce everywhere, which is fun. Just don't wear white while you're eating it. All right, so I'm gonna give that a little bit of a stir just to get everything going. Also, everybody knows the twist and drop, right? With the long noodles, you twist the noodles, then you drop them, and they all go in. You don't end up with a ton of overhang. Very good. Okay, now those are gonna boil up and cook. You wanna cook them until they're a little bit toothy, just al dente, absolutely beautiful. Now I've got a pan here that is heating over about medium-ish heat. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of oil into there just to get heating. Any sort of olive oil you've got. This is the one you use, not the fancy one. This is your like everyday olive oil. While that's heating, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna chop up an onion. Now, if you've got 2 halves of random onions in your fridge, feel free to use that. Also a good fridge drawer cleanup, if you will. But I've got 1 yellow onion here. If you've got a red, if you've got a mixture of shallots and red onion and white onion, honestly, use whatever you've got hanging around. You just wanna dice it up pretty finely. And anytime you're dicing an onion, a lot of times chefy people will tell you gotta go this way and then you gotta slice in this way. I don't do that because the onion already has petals, so it's already kind of sliced itself that way. So I just slice it down and then across this way, and you get a pretty good dice every single time. So super simple. Perfect. Awesome. Now I gotta do the second half. This is always the thing. Chopping an onion takes about like 15 seconds in real world, but on TV it feels like it takes 82 years, which is a delight. Now, if you are someone who likes like a quick hack or maybe chopping onions is not for you, you could grab one of those like little mini chopper guys. Those are perfect. Because honestly, when you're making a sauce, you want things to be relatively uniform so they cook evenly, but it really doesn't matter if it's all that fancy. So just, you know, chop it up however you see fit. Now that oil is nice and hot. I'm just gonna transfer this onion right on into that pan just to get cooking. So I'm gonna cook that onion for about 3 to 4 minutes, just until it's a little bit translucent and softened. So to help that start cooking down, I'm gonna season it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper too, just for some flavor. Give that a stir to let that go. Whoop, ladle stuck. All right, perfect. That is looking beautiful. Anytime I smell onions cooking, I know it's gonna be a good meal. It's like the perfect base flavor for everything. Now, onion's best friend, obviously some garlic. So we're gonna go over here and chop up some garlic. I've got 2 cloves here. You can add more, you can add less, whatever you feel like it. But I actually wanna slice this garlic because I want a nice soft garlic flavor as opposed to like a punchy one. Garlic is kind of funny. The more you chop it, the stronger it tastes. So when you slice it, even though you're getting big hunks of it actually tastes a lot softer when you cook it down. So this is gonna give a nice kind of perfume of garlic flavor. Let those other fridge door flavors kind of shine. All right, that garlic's all prepped, the onion's cooking down. Now I'm gonna head to my fridge to start clearing it out. So one of my favorite things to do anytime I'm going into a fridge is get a little sheet pan, pop a towel or paper towel onto it so things don't slide around, and then just get like spelunking. You're just searching, you're getting whatever you want. We got some olives, capers, anything that's briny and funky. Anchovies, not for everybody, but they are today because they are delicious. Ooh, I got jarred tuna, some sun-dried tomatoes, red peppers, and then of course, some wine, because why not? Am I right? If you've got wine, you might as well chuck it in there. You got it open, you're good to go. Okay, perfect. Now I'm just gonna pop all of those delicious things down, and I'm gonna add that garlic into the pan as well as these delicious anchovies. So come on over to the stove. Garlic's going in with those onions. I cook these onions down for a little bit longer just to get them a little bit softer. But I'm adding in the garlic now. That needs about a minute. Now with the garlic, I'm gonna add in my anchovies. Now I know, anchovies aren't for everybody. Some people think they're gross. I think they're delicious. They just taste like funky salt, kind of. Like they're a salty ingredient. So to be honest, I'm not gonna add any more salt into this dish now that I'm adding in these salty ingredients. So you wanna go in with anywhere from, I'd say, 4 to 6 anchovies. If you're just starting out, you can do 1, but that little bit of funk is so good. So that's about 2. They're basically tiny little creepy fish that melt in the pan. They look kind of gnarly. 4, I'm going in for 5. Let's do it. Guys, we're getting to know each other tonight with this dish. Now the anchovies are neat. They're really, really tender, and they actually kind of just break down with the heat. So just use your spoon and just kind of chop them up in the pan. They melt in. You're not gonna end up with a big mouthful of anchovy. They will melt into the sauce beautifully. They're gonna be delicious. You're not necessarily gonna know they're in there. They're just gonna give like a salty funk, really tasty. Now into there, I'm also gonna go in with a little bit of tomato paste. So I usually have some tomato paste hanging around in my pantry or in my fridge. Maybe I've used a little bit. One of my favorite things to do with this though, if I have any left over, is I just put it into a zip top bag, pop it in the freezer. You got tomato paste whenever you need it. Now I need about 3 tablespoons right into here. Perfect. Give that a good stir just to combine and just to cook off some of that raw tomato paste flavor. I love tomato paste. Someone else has cooked it down for me, but it can tend to taste a little tinny if you don't cook it down. So just give it a mix in just to kind of come together. Perfect. Now, if you were in this studio, they can all tell you can smell the anchovies. 6 does give you anchovy flavor. If you're not a fan, feel free to do 1. Don't worry, studio audience. If you do 6, yeah, it's gonna taste like anchovies. But again, I love them. All right, that's looking absolutely beautiful. I'd cook this down for a little bit longer just to get those flavors melding. But now we're gonna deglaze the pan. This is gonna start bringing everything together. For that, I'm using that delicious white wine. You could also use vodka if you're feeling a little fancy. But here, the alcohol actually does something to the sauce. Tomatoes have a couple different flavors that get released with different introductions of other ingredients. Fat, delicious. That brings out a more tomatoey flavor. A little bit of water, like in those onions, more tomato. But they also have alcohol-soluble flavors. So by adding about a 1/4 cup of white wine or vodka into the pan, that's gonna make these tomatoes taste sweeter. It's gonna make them taste stronger and just more delicious. So you just want that to simmer away just until that wine has evaporated, especially if you're cooking this for anybody, you know, who's avoiding alcohol. Again, if you are fully, feel free to leave it out. It's not gonna make or break the dish. It does just bring another level into here. And again, helps me clean out my fridge door. Always a good thing. All right, now into there I'm going in with a can of crushed tomatoes. This is such a delight. I love a crushed tomato. They're super fresh, super tasty. Someone else has kind of cooked them down, got them going. So just go in with that whole can. And then for a little bit of heat, I'm also adding in some chili flakes. If you want, you don't need to add this, but I like that spice. Puttanesca originally is like a dish that you use to, or make to use up whatever you got hanging around at the end of the night. And I usually have some chilies hanging around, so I'm going in with about a teaspoon. Guys, she punchy, and I'm very excited about it. All right. Give that a stir just to combine. This is gonna keep cooking down. It's gonna get savorier, sweeter, saltier, and a little bit spicier. But this is where we start really adding in all those little bits and bobs that you have hanging out in your fridge door. Maybe you had people over, you put olives out. Maybe you made a martini, and then you never looked at those olives again, and they've been hanging out in there. This is a great recipe to use all that stuff up. Now, I've got a mixture of some olives, I've got some sun-dried tomatoes, roasted red peppers, I've got some jarred tuna, and some capers. Now, if you didn't have any of these things, or you had some but not all, honestly, do this how you want it. I really like salty, funky things, so I'm going big with the olives and things like that. But honestly, if you're not a big fan of that, don't worry. It'll still be delicious. Just make sure it tastes right to you. Puttanesca is just all about using up what you've got hanging around. Now, I've also got some beautiful roasted red peppers here. I pretty much always have a jar of these at home because they're really, really great. Tons of sweet flavor. I'm gonna thinly slice those up just to add along with those olives. Now, you can buy them already sliced if you can find them, but honestly, buying them whole, totally delish. You could even stuff those with some cheese, roast them up, Put them next to some chicken. Oh, what a delight. But we're putting in pasta, so stop talking about chicken, Mary. Okay. Now, I've got that sauce over here that is boiling up. It is just simmering down. It's thickened a bit. That wine has cooked off. It looks absolutely delicious. Just like anytime you are making a red sauce, don't wear white. That's the only thing that can go wrong with this recipe. Now over here, I've got about half a cup of chopped up olives, any type of work. I got calamatas. And then also about half a cup of that roasted red pepper that I've chopped up. So I'm just gonna land those right on into that pan. That's gonna give you some salt, it's gonna give you some sweet, and then those roasted red peppers give you a little bit of like fire smokiness, which is gonna be absolutely delicious. If you like olives, obviously feel free to add more. If you don't like olives, just leave them out. I'm not your mom. Make it whatever you want. It's gonna be easy and delicious. All right, now into there, I'm also gonna add in some sun-dried tomatoes. I've got some that are already julienned, which means cut into slices. So that's easy breezy. I can just add those in. Any of that delicious oil that comes with is just gonna richen up this sauce and make it absolutely amazing. So just about half a cup of those. These are like umami city. You know how everyone thinks of like soy sauce or like bacon and stuff as umami? Sun-dried tomatoes are so full of that delicious kind of savory, funky flavor. Total dream, very exciting. All right, give that a stir in. My all-time favorite briny ingredient, and I think I get this from my mom, is capers. You know when you have a bagel, a little bit of cream cheese on there, maybe some smoked salmon? Capers are a total dream. They're actually flower buds, which I didn't know until recently. They're not like a pickle, they're just a flower bud that that they've brined. So they've got real salty, delicious flavor. My pasta's boiling over, gonna take the lid off. Multitasking, Mary, it's all good. And I'm gonna go in with a couple tablespoons of those capers. Again, since those olives and those capers are nice and salty, I'm not gonna add any additional salt or seasoning into here. We're just gonna leave it as is. Give that a good stir just to combine. And now I'm just gonna drag those noodles into this pan. Anytime I'm making a sauce that I wanna toss those noodles in, I don't bother draining them. I just kind of grab them and drag them over, because any pasta water that comes with is actually gonna act kind of sort of like food Velcro. There's a good amount of starch in this water, so it kind of makes this sauce stick to these noodles better than they would without that pasta cooking liquid. Sounds kind of counterintuitive, because you're like, well, I'm adding a liquid, but it's somehow gonna make it thicker. Trust me, the science checks out, it works. All right, perfect. Now, I'm gonna give that a little bit of a toss just to combine with all of that amazing sauce. We've got all that beautifulness. As you can see, it's still a little thick, so I am gonna go in with a spoonful of that lightly seasoned, remember, pasta water, just to give it some deliciousness. And whenever I'm saucing something in a pan, I want it to be thicker in the pan than I want it on the plate. Starch, just like anything, likes to kind of firm up as it cools down. So make it a little sloppier in the pan, and it's not gonna seize up on the plate. There's nothing worse than getting a beautiful plate of pasta and not being able to break into it because it's just like a loaf, essentially. Nobody wants that. All right, give that a good stir. That is looking amazing. Now we need something fresh in there. So I have got some parsley and I've also got some oregano. If you don't have fresh herbs, you could easily just bust into your spice cabinet and feel free to use those. Dry Italian seasoning would be amazing. But I'm going in with about 3 tablespoons of parsley and maybe about a tablespoon of oregano. Oregano is a lot stronger than parsley, so I don't go too big on it. Feel free to give that a little bit of a chop up, as fine or as nice and neat as you'd like. Perfect. And then all those herbs are going right on top. Now, this does have anchovy in there, so technically we have 1 fish. That's okay, but I'm going in with my all-time fave, jarred, canned, whatever fish. If you've never had jarred tuna, it's a little bit pricier than canned, but it is so good. It's packed in oil. They almost come out like little fillets, so you can almost just kind of grab them out. You can see the tuna in little bits. You see that pink, beautiful color on the inside. Just pop that right on in. Again, any of that oil coming out will be absolutely delish. If you don't have jarred tuna, obviously canned will work as well. But keep it in big chunks. You like those big hunks because it makes you feel fancy and very Italian, which is always a delight. Give that a mix to combine. And this to me looks like a dinner for the ages. It's got everything I like. It's funky. It's cleaning out my fridge, which I love. So now I'm gonna give this a little bit of a serve. Now, one thing you will notice is missing, which is wild for me, there's no cheese. But there's a lot of fish going on. And honestly, I would put cheese on this, but a lot of people get mad at that. They're like, no fish and cheese. But honestly, do whatever you want. A little bit of pecorino would be absolutely amazing because it's a little bit funky. You can do kind of like a chefy, kind of twisty guy. Pop it down, little bit of that delicious tuna right on top. You've got those capers, you've got those olives, you got the little bit of herbs, and you have got basically my dream pasta. I'm very excited about this. All right, you can eat it out of there, but I also think science proves that pasta tastes better when you eat it out of a pan. Pasta's the only thing that I offer to clean up after dinner of because I just go into the kitchen and do this. That is so good. It's funky, it's delicious, it's salty. I'm gonna eat this whole pan. Hey, Mary here. What did you think? Drop your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the good stuff.